with our most recent unemployment rates, the Guam unemployment has dipped slightly below the national average. So that is a positive. Generally, I mentioned the differentials in wages. The cost of living issue is similar on Guam to the United States, although the cost of living on average.
Half a day. It's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast, the podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. All right, we have another great guest for the podcast today. Our guest today is the Chief Economist, Guam Department of Labor. He serves as the government of Guam's lead authority for labor market intelligence and primary liaison to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. He's recognized by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics as Guam's labor market information point of contact for the entire territory. He's a frequent media guest and forum guest for briefings on unemployment, inflation, and Guam's outlook. He's also an adjunct faculty member at the University of Guam teaching statistics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Gary Hiles. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Well, we're really glad to get your insight into the numbers and the story behind the numbers when it comes to the trends, forecasts, and outlook of Guam and the Guam business and economic community. So first, we have a tradition here. We start off with some icebreaker questions to get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. So first, what is your definition of innovation, and what does innovation personally mean to you?
Innovation is really where you have ideas and they're implemented to make improvements, and the improvements could be in the processes of how you make things, the products you make, or the services, or how you use the products. So it's kind of a creative process where we have an invention in place and then you add to it and improve on it.
Outstanding. What's a favorite under the radar data series that you track for Guam that more leaders should really pay attention to, and why?
Well, one thing that I always include in my reports, but doesn't get much media, is the number of hours worked. And the reason for that is it seems like a small change, but if employers increase the average hourly work by just 1 hour from, say, 36 to 37, that's equivalent to about 1,200 additional workers. So you can make a huge adjustment in the labor force just with a small increase in the hours worked. And also, it's an indicator when things are picking up. Generally, the first thing employers will do is have the employees work a little longer, and reverse when things are turning down.
Interesting. How often does that really change, that statistic?
We put it out quarterly, along with
Understood, but where do you see differences in increases in numbers of hours worked or decreases? How often do you see that?
It pretty much tracks the economy. So, for example, in the pandemic, when things were slowing down, the hours worked went down a lot. And then as things started to recover, the hours recovered a lot, especially in the hotel industry. And they varied a little bit from time to time, depending on tourism as things improve or decline.
Okay. So we're talking about all things innovation. What's a recent local innovation, whether it be in business, government, or in education, that's made you feel optimistic about Guam's economic trajectory?
Well, I'll start with a couple of things that the Department of Labor, and not just Guam, but everywhere pretty much in the government, is that now that we put the documents online on websites, we no longer have to take the time to print them. And so that saves a lot of time and makes it faster. And it makes the data accessible to whoever wants it 24 hours a day, wherever you are in the world. Another big
Hold on,
innovation.
before you go on to the next one, you want to shout out where people can go and directly look at their latest and greatest statistics? You want to shout out that website?
Sure, is uh, www.bls for Bureau of Labor Statistics.guam.gov. And that has a link to the uh, rest of the Department of Labor website to get employment and other labor information.
Awesome. All right, I cut you off. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So the other innovation is that's really kind of transformative is that uh, the public almost has cell phones now, smartphones, and we have the job bank. So our service provider, GSL Information Systems, I'm trying to think of the word for it. They optimize the job bank stuff that's on the website for use on cell phones. So now somebody that's looking for a job or wants to place a job opening can any time of the day look at the job openings and see what's uh, coming up. So it's a lot more of a quick dynamic process to look for and find uh, fill the
Optimized for mobile devices. Yeah.
yeah, that's the
The,
word.
so curious, thinking down that same line, in terms of communication, if there are any updates, are you able to like text people based on a sign up subscription, um, of people who might be interested in looking for something right now? Therefore, it comes as a push directly to the mobile device.
For statistics, we've looked at that, but we haven't done it. There, there, there may be that capability for the employment service side. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Good. Innovation leaders, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson here. Are you ready to elevate your vehicle fleet operations? Fleet Solutions is an AI-enabled fleet management system. Fleet Solutions provides real-time video, smart analytics, and total efficiency. Keep your people safe and keep your business moving forward faster than ever before. Fleet Solutions, arriving tomorrow, today. Visit thefleetsolutions.net or call 671-988-9748 to schedule your personalized demo and revolutionize your fleet operations today. All right, so let's talk about Guam economic trends and some of the biggest ones of the last 5 years, right? So, um, can you talk about the biggest economic shifts that you've seen in the data for Guam over the last 5 years? Obviously, we have, the two big whammies, if you will, the pandemic and then the typhoon, which is going to have a huge impact in the numbers and the trajectory. But can you just kind of put some context around it and talk about what do you see in the last 5 years of data?
Sure. Just before the pandemic, the tourism was at record levels in terms of hotel occupancies and tourist arrivals and revenues. And then with the pandemic, that quickly collapsed. And then it's been a long recovery. But fortunately, at that time, the military buildup had already gotten somewhat underway. And so that cushioned the blow financially. To a considerable extent, and also some employment that construction companies were still working. And fortunately, there was a lot of federal funds with the uh, the pandemic unemployment assistance and other things. So the economy did much better than we expected. The one really interesting feature was that uh, with the economy that's so dependent on tourism essentially shut down, is that there was a bankruptcy attorney that was doing a seminar on bankruptcies, and we were expecting massive bankruptcies. But what's
Wow.
shocking that there were almost no bankruptcies, and that compares dramatically different to the downturn at the end of the Bush administration when we had the housing crisis and recession.
Yes.
There was a lot of foreclosures. And one thing that was very different this time, in addition to the federal response of being much quicker, probably learned from the prior downturn, is to be more aggressive with monetary or policy to stimulate the economy. And also that people that had a hard time, that their businesses were heavily impacted, or their finances were impacted and they couldn't make their mortgages because of the housing values were so high, that they were able to sell the house and make a profit on it rather than go into a foreclosure. So the situation was quite different.
So I'm going to read back to you what I think I heard you in terms of a summary. It sounds like pandemic could have been, and quite frankly, should have been worse for Guam, but because of some smart moves to get a lot of federal assistance and federal funds infused into the economy, we were able to ride it out a lot better than what you would think or anticipate. Did I kind of read that theme
Absolutely.
correctly?
A lot better. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
not very
yeah.
quickly, because a lot of the people that lost their jobs, especially when the pandemic unemployment insurance expired, they needed to find work, and many of them have relocated to the States. So that's shrunk our labor force, especially in the tourism industry.
Okay.
And
So
you
this is
mentioned
probably a good, go ahead.
you mentioned Marwar. That had a impact, but it was much briefer because Guam is pretty resilient for typhoons. And what's interesting is a number of the businesses that closed because of the typhoon damage and they weren't able to operate, they kept their employees, and the employees were doing cleanup and recovery effort. So the impact on employment was relatively short. I think about it only showed up like in one quarter there was a dip, and that recovered pretty quickly. The damage that was done at the military, however, uh, they were able to continue operations, but it required a lot of repairs, and there was lots of federal funding and projects for repair work, and some of that's still ongoing.
Okay. So this is probably a good segue into kind of the next set of questions, which is really about kind of forecasts, right? For what do we expect over the next 5 years? So because of those dual whammies, we really didn't get as big of an economic hit as you would expect because of infusion of federal funds for various different reasons. But does that mean that that safety net that was put in place because of the infusion of all of these federal funds, once that drops away, are we expected that there's going to be a corresponding economic drop that, unless filled, is going to define what the economy looks like over the next
Well,
5 years?
that was a big concern when we were in the pandemic, and we knew that the funding for the pandemic funds was short. What's going to happen after that? Interestingly, uh, the before the pandemic funds lapsed, the tourism started recovering and the construction was recovering. So that situation really never occurred, that the economy was gradually recovering almost every quarter from the pandemic to where it is
Okay.
today.
Okay. So I know you all like to do models and stuff for your statistics and metrics and all that kind of stuff. And as you model like 2026 out to 2030, what's your best case for growth, employment, and wages? What's kind of your upside, downside scenarios that you're thinking about, forecasting, et cetera, for the economy at large?
Due to all of the military construction projects that are already the plans are in the works, and they've gone further, and there's bids done and construction contracts. It's pretty much assured that construction will remain at a high level, probably even go up a little bit higher for the next few years as the projects are completed and more projects are on the way. So that's pretty well locked in as strength, continuing strength in the economy. Tourism has been surprisingly slow in recovering on Guam from the pandemic. That has a lot to do with the source of our tourists that are from international markets, primarily Korea and Japan. But those have been pretty consistently recovering, but at a slower rate. So there's that's probably the biggest concern is hopefully that pace of recovery would continue and perhaps accelerate with some new air service that's been added recently to Taiwan and some other flights. There's optimism that it will continue to pick up, and but that one is less certain how much because of a lot of the international factors like tariffs and international concerns about travel to foreign countries and the effect of the tariffs on exchange rates and a host of factors. So it looks like the best case or the most likely scenario, I think, is that we'll continue to see improvement in tourism coupled with increase in construction. So we're looking at a tight labor market for those years going forward with essentially very low unemployment.
Okay. So a previous guest on the podcast was Mark Baldega, and he was talking about kind of the his concerns with tourism, and one of the things that he's been very loud proponent about is if we don't do smart, proactive, intentional investments and programs to spur tourism, we might not see a recovery for 10 years or more. That he was very adamant that the government and the whole community really needs to pull together to invest on two sides of the uh, tourism coin. One being kind of incentives for the markets to come here, and two, um, putting money into the experience providers here on island to basically spruce up a lot of their offerings because for really 5 years, pandemic and then um, the typhoon, things went down and they weren't able to invest in sprucing up the facilities, the experiences, the offerings and stuff, and they really need to invest in that. Is the money there for that investment, or is that something that's going to be pretty lean?
I think that because tourism after the pandemic was so slow, that a lot of the businesses that provide optional tours and support activities, restaurants, and things to do didn't have the market for those services, so they shut down. Hopefully, with more tourist population, that will support reopening and perhaps some new activities. So I think that would kind of goes along with the size of the number of tourists that are taking these available on island to take the tours, and probably also it takes some thinking on the part of the businesses to adjust to the changes in the market and invest appropriately. I can put in a plug for the Mark Baldig. I thought it was a clever innovation at the Zoe Club. It used to be that known as the Globe and the Sand or at the Sandcastle. In addition to having the dance club, they they took the dancers from the show that were on site and they added them as a show to the part of the event. So you had live performers. I haven't seen that anywhere else in the world.
Awesome.
So I think that was a really unique and very exciting event for the tours. So part of the tourist recovery, I think, is twofold. One is to have reasons that tourists want to come here. And of course,
Right.
for me as a swimmer, the warm water is always an attraction year round. But things that make you want to come here for conventions or the beach or golfing or whatever, visiting relatives. And also, the other side, eliminate some of the negatives that tours might keep tourists away, such as improving facilities and transportation.
Right. Right. Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit about workforce development. That is a very passionate subject for me. Um, can you talk a little bit about what kind of specific workforce development metrics and indicators that you track, and what do they tell you about the state and needs of Guam's um, STEM workforce or the workforce in general?
Yeah, we track and publish statistics on how many employees there are on Guam, and it's broken down by industry, so in great detail. And we also break industry defines what the company does, like the company is a hotel or a bank or a government agency. And then we break the information down and publish it by occupation. Occupation is what the individual workers do. So, for example, you could be an accountant in a bank or a hotel or a government. So there's different training, which is in the educational requirements rely largely on the occupation, but some of it's industry specific as well. Um, so then the STEM requirements really depend on what the occupation is. Obviously, engineers and doctors would have more STEM requirements. Using STEM would be including sciences and math and things of that nature. And
Right.
so, based on the occupational profile, we can look at what the STEM needs are. And then it will also vary with the technology. And at a meeting at the University of Guam for the committee, they're looking at how to uh, include some of those trainings and beef up science and math in the school system, so people are prepared to do advanced work in those fields.
Okay. So I'm going to throw something at you. So one of the underlying themes in the podcast here, we posit that there's a vision for Guam um, having the potential to be a 21st century tech and innovation hub. That with a lot of the military buildup and the importance and focus that's being happening to this region, that there's going to be a lot of sustainment, logistics, maintenance, and maybe even light manufacturing work that could come um, with the defense buildup if we're smart and we build up small cottage industries to provide support to weapon systems and equipment and stuff like that. And if we invest in providing that support through um, advanced technology like AI, IoT, additive manufacturing, et cetera, then the uh, it will just bring more and more workload here because this will be a place that'll be known for that excellent and it's a natural hub. And following the defense workloads, it will just normally attract or naturally attract the commercial workloads because Guam is using this cutting edge technology to deliver and support different products and services using high technology. Do you think um, that we have an ability to get there? And if so, in what time frame and what things do we need to invest in to be able to be that um, um, 21st century tech and innovation hub?
I think a lot of it is going to be depending on the comparative advantage that where it makes most sense for the businesses to locate. One example that it appears that the government is supporting and the that GEDA is supporting is the additive manufacturing, also probably better known as 3D printing. So
Right.
not only can they print on paper, but they can print with different materials such as metals or plastics and scan the item that they want to print and print out the part. That has a lot of applications for the defense industry. If a part breaks, on an old equipment and possibly at the Guam Power Authority, that you need a specific electrical component that you could just print it on island. And it turns out that it's a lot more complex than I thought, especially for high tech applications that
Devil's
they,
in the details.
the devils in the details. They need those parts to be very provable that they have certain strengths that they can withstand the loads of the part they're printing, and then they have to be certain size specifications. So they have technical people going to be required for doing the measurements and the testing, and as well as the scanning the equipment to manufacture it. But it's pretty cool. For example, like if you have an old car uh, that the car's out of manufacture, no parts are available, but you have the door handle from one side, you could just scan it and print out a new door handle for the other side for the missing part. So that application is going to be probably implemented on Guam along with technology to do much more complex and detailed specifications for the military and private sector use.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that initiative. Alex Benham and his team with Astro America, who've bedded down over in the new, what is that, Pacific Industrial Park out there on Route 3, heading out toward the Marine Corps base just between GRMC and the Marine Corps base. I'm really excited what Alex is going to be able to do with the team and really praise the governor for being so far-sighted and seeing the possibilities and what this could bring to the island. So very excited about seeing how this develops over the next years. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, what other things to feed something like that in terms of workforce development are you maybe looking at, or we need to change some numbers or increase some numbers to support things like that?
A lot of times it's sort of a chicken or an egg problem that uh, we have people that are graduated with science degrees, but if they find there's no job available, that they just leave the island. So
Right.
it's kind of, but if you try to open up a business with that requiring those skills and people aren't trained for it, then that makes it hard to do business. So just getting those kinds of things started makes it easy to add on and build upon the initial activities. Also, as the economy expands, there's just a general feature that more specialized types of businesses will be able to survive in a larger economy, and that goes for medical, which is a high end, high value added product that is, if the population is too small, it doesn't support specialties that need to perform their operations or procedures on a number of patients to make it sustainable. But with a larger population, generally you get a larger mass. We had that in the retail industry when the size of the economy got large enough, then we could get big box stores and things like that. So
Okay.
that will be sort of a natural evolution as people discover that the market is large enough to sustain additional investments.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's now transition our discussion, focus on the military buildup, kind of the impact now and you know, um, you know, in the future. So, can you talk about what the stats have shown in terms of the impact of DoD's buildup, um, probably most visibly in construction jobs, housing, consumer demand, supply chains, those kind of things. And are we already past the peak of the buildup, or have we not reached the peak yet?
I think we're nearing the peak, but we may not be near the or have reached the peak yet, because a lot of the projects, there it's pretty typical in construction. There's a number of delays and things get pushed back. So that's what we've seen with the military buildup, and also the plans to build the defense uh, aviation system to protect us from incoming
Yeah,
threats.
the missile defense system.
Missile defense system. That's a huge project that's going to require a lot of work and expenditures on Guam. Also, the wharf at the port is going to get extensive work, and then
Yeah.
also Marine Drive is going to get upgraded. So there's going to be a lot of additional work that's been added since the original plans. So I think that uh, we're pretty confident that the construction will continue. But what's interesting too is that as construction increased associated with the buildup, both the local uh, construction workforce has expanded and it's been supplemented by H2 workers.
Okay.
And that's
So,
created a lot of revenue for the government of Guam as well. And so indirectly, it's created more demand for goods and services and employment from government workers as they spend their money, and uh, subcontractors and so on.
so what I hear you say is that maybe right at the peak or just on the positive side of the peak. We're not yet on the downside of the peak of the military buildup, which is good. That means that we have time. But what would you say to those people who say at some point the military buildup goes away and all of this money and this infusion to the economy that it's brought, unless you've built something to replace that, it's going to be like a giant hole that's just sitting there waiting. It's just a matter of time. What year do we approach the hole unless we plan to put something there in the place of the military buildup? What would you say to those people?
There's a lot of truth to that. Uh, the situation is that there's a couple of partial answers to that. Is that when the construction portion of the buildup is done, then there's going to be a transfer of forces to Guam, and then that's going to create rather than employment and revenue from the construction phase, it'll move into operations. So that will make Guam the regular economy permanently larger, with additional service members and dependents and civilian workers. Another part in the immediate aftermath or after the as the DoD construction phases down is, well, first of all, it keeps not phasing down as we anticipated because projects keep getting added. So we'll see how long that holds out. But eventually, we do expect that the military construction will decline. And there's also a lot of pent up civilian construction planned and desired for increased housing and increased hotels and other development that's kind of been put on hold because of the shortage of construction workers and the cost of construction. When the military construction downsizes, then that will create an opportunity for other private development that's been kind of squeezed out in the short term. So that's another component of it. And finally, I do expect, like after when all of the hotels were finished in Tumon Bay, that the employment in the construction sector will shrink and possibly the aggregate in the economy.
Okay. All right. That's
That's
good.
the way.
That's good perspective on looking at what to expect and looking at the military buildup both now and in the future. Let's return to another topic that we already hit upon and talking about the impact of the double whammy, COVID-19 plus the typhoon. And you talked about how, there was a lot of resilience there because there was smart planning and a lot of advocacy to get in federal funds such that it was not as bad as it could have been or even maybe should have been. Um, Given that, though, what do you think in terms of lessons learned? What kind of resilient levers do we need to invest in, like infrastructure hardening, insurance or finance tools, supply chain diversification? What are the things that you point to from a statistical standpoint or a numbers standpoint and say, hey, look, here are these numbers tell a story in terms of lessons learned and what we need to invest in to increase and bolster resilience for the next time.
Yeah. One of the things that's happened typically in our typhoons is that the utilities go down. And the last one, it's not only the power utility, but as the dependence on cell phones has increased as opposed to landlines, a lot of the phone service for a lot of people was out, and internet as well. I know the cell service providers have made a lot of investments to harden their and increase their resilience, and that would be helpful. Also, some of the cables are going underground. That would be further strengthen it. Uh,
Right.
at the defense seminar, the military talked about a lot of investments that provide a secure environment for the military and dual use with the civilians. So the military will be supporting a lot of the activities to harden some of these infrastructures for power and communications. So it supports the Defense Department, but it also supports the civilian community. But ultimately, the typhoons are pretty wicked. There's still going to be some damages, but with
Of course.
more resilient utilities. One thing we almost forgot about that how much better the recovery was in these recent typhoons is that compared to like Typhoon Karen before my time on Guam, that almost a great many of the residential structures were wood and tin, and they blew down. There's
Mm,
a lot of investment, so the majority of the housing and the businesses now are reinforced concrete, and so the structures themselves may get some damage, but it's not like they're all going to be blown away. So the hardening of the structures has been a huge factor in making Guam more resilient.
Right, right. All right, great. Let's shift gears again and start talking about healthcare. And uh, what do you see in the numbers? What do the numbers say about Guam's healthcare needs versus the healthcare employment, wages, demands, et cetera? Basically, the supply and demand of um, Guam's healthcare needs versus providers.
Yeah, when the Guam Regional Medical City Hospital was built, their assessment was that Guam could even use greater capacity. So that my uh, understanding of it is that Guam is underserved compared to what we should be based on our population. And a lot of medical care is performed offline, or excuse me, off island. And that part of that is necessarily due to the size of the Guam economy that can't support all of the specialists and specialized surgeries. So that will continue. Um, uh, One thing that has happened and been very useful is increased telemedicine so that the doctors here can do a teleconference. I did one myself with an off-island provider and
Me
got
too.
the advice. So patients can do that directly, and also through the clinics, the doctors have can have professional arrangements with clinics, and I believe the governor has set up one recently with the Keck Medical School to have. So it's like having the medical expertise from off island hospitals with expertise that are available on Guam to Guam physicians. Another big issue, though, with medical care and the economy is the changing in Guam and the United States is the changing dynamics of the population. So as the population ages, that affects the workforce availability for certain occupations that require young, healthy workers or experienced workers who are retiring. Uh, so that's an issue from the employer side of being able to attract the talent you need. But it's also a factor on the demand side because when people retire and uh, what they buy is different and the need for medical services increases. So that is likely to increase in the states. The estimates are that's going to increase medical services, the demand for medical services, and hence that's going to increase employment in medical and home care and other services related to taking care of a more elderly population. So that's one change in the labor force dynamics and composition.
Great information. Given all of that, do you think that Guam is making strides in closing the gaps that you were talking about, or do you think we're actually falling behind, our CONUS peers or even regional peers?
It's a mixed situation. Uh, One thing that's happened now with the not only in Guam but worldwide with the improved communications and transportation that we can get to any place in the world practically in a major city in the same day or the next day is that the transfer of technology, that's the innovations and the cell phones, is gets to Guam as fast as anywhere else. Another interesting thing is that uh, Guam is developed more recently, and you don't really notice it. But if you go to some cities that are been in existence for a long time, like Chicago or New York. Some of their infrastructure and their sewer systems might be 100 or years old or older. So we have much newer technology and infrastructure in a number of areas. So that's a difference. In terms of the wages, it looks like we're pretty much treading water, that there's a differential where Guam wages are on average about 30% below the US. And the double whammy there is that the prices on Guam on average are about 25% higher than the US. So it makes affordability for a lot of people a big difficult issue for living on Guam.
Right, right. So you are the keeper of the statistics and the data. And if you are recommending or advising to Guam's leaders, what one or improvement and to basically improve healthcare capacity by 2030 timeframe, what would it be? What do the numbers tell you, point to this is what we need to invest in or improve in as we go forward?
Healthcare is not my primary area of expertise, but based on the demographics, we need to look at the demographics and the likelihood to assess what the additional needs for different medical services are. And also there's been changes in the delivery of medical services. Increasingly, there's, besides the physician and the nurse, there's other health specialties such as physician assistant and
Yes.
so on. So there's these can supplement and take care of many of the patients that don't need a board certified doctor for especially more routine things. So you'll probably see a continued expansion of things like that.
Okay. All right. Let's shift gears again and talk a little bit about Guam versus our CONUS sister states, if you will, and how does Guam compare or contrast to the continental United States? When you look at the standard economic indicators, unemployment, participation rate, inflation, cost of living, median wages, those kinds of things, where does Guam um, um, fall? Where does it overperform? Where does it underperform? Where does it stand relative to the 50 states?
With our most recent unemployment rates, the Guam unemployment has dipped slightly below the national average. So that is a positive. Generally, I mentioned the differentials in wages. The cost of living issue is similar on Guam to the United States, although the cost of living on average is higher. There's a great deal of difference. Not every situation is average. In fact, most people are somewhat different from the average. So it depends on the household circumstances. If you were fortunate enough to buy a house and own it from 10 or 20 years ago, your cost of living is quite different from somebody's trying to buy one today. So if you're healthy, then you have minimal health care coverage or expenses. Whereas if you're not healthy, in addition to the cost of the medical care, you have to look at, it's not just the price of the service on Guam, but if you have to go off island, like to Los Angeles, you've got transportation expenses. So
Right.
well, maybe the hospital in Los Angeles costs the same, but if you live in Los Angeles, you can just take an Uber or get a ride from somebody to the hospital. where here we've got to add transportation expenses. But that varies by the individual. So some people may be greatly affected by that and other people not at all. So a lot of the circumstances, the averages don't account for the tremendous variation in individual and household circumstances.
Okay.
Some things are easier on Guam. For example, our property taxes are incredibly low. Insurance is low. Utilities are high, but there's a lot of variation.
All right.
But
All
generally,
right.
consumer prices on Guam kind of pretty closely mirror the direction and the prices in the United States. If the prices of the commodities go up, a lot of our commodities are imported, and they pretty much track a similar pattern. So we get the same and same thing on interest rates are influenced by and fuel by international markets and federal policy on interest rates. So we're pretty much in the same boat on a lot of those things.
Okay. All right. So now we come toward the end, and we're going to do like a lightning round, if you will. These are actionable takeaways. You are the keeper of the data. You are the expert of the numbers and what the numbers are telling us, and the leaders come to you to hear your advice. So we're going to do a quick run through of several different areas. So first, for government leaders, what's the one no regrets move that you would advise in 2026 in terms of investment or policy?
Upgrade the public transportation system so that the buses run frequently and reliably. And that's going to be a great service for the employees. Employment is a factor, and a lot of people aren't able to, if they don't have a car, they're not able to meet the employer schedules. They've gone through, employees go through all kinds of heroics to get rides or camp out by their employer to get to work on time. It's also would be a boon for independent travelers that like to go out and venture on their own. I do that myself when I go to different cities, as I like to take the public transit to get around, and that would be, I think, very helpful for the tourists. And it would also be environmentally good to get less traffic on the road. So that would be one of my number one takeaways. Another one
Great
is the
answer. Great answer. I don't hear that public transportation one thrown around a lot, but it's definitely needed here on Guam. Great answer.
yeah, I've experienced that because I live in front of a bus stop, and where I get off at GCIC, there's a bus stop, but it takes, if things go well, it takes more than an hour. But my experience is that it runs infrequently, and that doesn't work with work schedules, and it's not been reliable. Often the bus is late or it doesn't come. And that's just, this discussion has been going on for decades. And I think the volume of traffic that would support it, expansion is, along with federal funds, that's doable. The other one I think everybody is interested in is doing in improving funding for maintenance, maintaining the infrastructure and the equipment in the swimming pools so that they're world class, and we don't have to do double sessions. That impacts education negatively, and
Yes.
that we're trying to get people that are better educated for the workforce, and that has all kinds of things. There's also a kind of a financial reason. If in the boom period now, where the revenues are above normal levels, to get everything in good shape in the buildings and infrastructure, then if we have a downturn and a tight budget, then everything is still working. So
Yeah,
rather than go into
that's
a
a
tight
great recommendation.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the maintenance piece.
that is, in fact, the former economist John Gilliam had recommended at one time that maybe we should have a separate capital budget for capital improvements, and
Mm,
often that's sort of squeezed out. Maintenance and capital improvements are squeezed out of the budget. Those would be my take, primary ones. But also for businesses and government to be keep they're alert to the changes in technology and the consumer demand. Some companies are doing a good job of that, of adjusting their marketing to different market mixes. And also, there's there's over two. We publish. There's enough employment to publish over 200 occupations on Guam, and maybe 100 different industries. And each of those has different unique tools and software. So different, one occupation might have new tools or new software to use. And so the people in each business and occupation need to keep abreast of changes in the technology, and especially with AI, things are moving along quickly in terms of innovation. And also quickly, one thing that's so different now with the internet, the whole world is connected. So if somebody invents something in anywhere in the world, we can find out about it shortly and adopt those. So the pace of adoption of the innovations from around the world uh, can be done on Guam just as quickly as anywhere else. It reminds me of one story I heard about before the industrial age. If something was invented in China, such as pottery or making copper, that it might take 1,000 years before other countries would know about it because there was no transportation and no electronic communication. An occasional ship that might go by would transfer some technology. So uh, the pace of innovation, that's a apt subject for your podcast, innovation, because as different inventions come into place, then improvements can be made to those. And for example, the cell phone, they added all sorts of features to it, like texting and making movies and videos and a calculator and all kinds of things. And that as those innovations go around the world, people can add to them, and then those technologies can be adopted. And I think this will be accelerated with artificial intelligence because now with the artificial intelligence, things that took years to research, like new drugs or new metals to make the metal stronger, you can use artificial intelligence to look at, gee, we need a metal that's stronger and lighter for our aircraft or our cars. How do you combine it, the materials and the molecules using chemistry or physics to make stronger materials that meet our criteria or more bendable without breaking? Um, so I think a lot of these innovations are going to really accelerate in the development and the mass adoption.
yeah, yeah. So you already touched a little bit on business. So I'd asked you about government, business, anything else for business? Um, any other suggestion to business owners in terms of hiring or training or pricing?
I think businesses need to recognize that increasingly we're in a national, if not global, labor market. The remote work gives a lot of flexibility and access to talent that might not otherwise be available on island. And the the fact that the U.S. economy is doing quite well has made the need for Guam employers to be competitive with U.S. employers because a lot of employees have moved to the United States
Yeah,
due to employment and affordability issues. And that's
yeah.
going to be a continuing challenge.
Yeah. What about workforce developers and educators? What's one program to scale based on the data?
Well, there's maybe two components. One is the fact that the technology and the products are changing so much that rather than focusing on training for teaching a specific skill the way we do it, is that more general skills like uh, social skills and learning skills uh, are more important because you have to keep learning and adapting to whatever new product, new software comes along. It's not like here's the software and you're going to spend the rest of your life using that same software.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are adapting in all of the products and services. And the payment system is one. I was at a luncheon meeting and somebody paid the bill with their cell phone, and then they all got together and then they, you know, put their cell phones together and then they chipped in from one electronic payment device to another to set a meal cost for each of the participants. So uh, there's and people have to learn all of those things. So the fundamental skills I think are important, but also uh, every business and person has to. You can have much shorter, and some of it's many times good online things
Yeah.
on podcasts and YouTube. You can learn how to do little specific functions like how to do make videos on your phone, or there's so many different or specific softwares. So there's a lot of online training materials available that are useful.
Right, right. Okay. And what about for young professionals? What's one signal that you would point to that it's a good time to build a career on island, or to look for that particular signal to say, hey, if you've already moved off to the US, maybe this is a good time to come back to the island.
Well, for one reason, the unemployment is low, and as tourism expands, there's a lot of openings in a lot of different types of positions, professional and skilled laborers of various types and unskilled labor. So if you want to come back, most likely you can get a good job without too much delay. Um, and enjoy many things that Guam has, like year-round weather and warm water that you don't have in other places. And it's well positioned in Asia, so it's a good place to stop off and do travel vacations in Asia. And it has a lot of advantages. It's pretty compact, easy to get around. So consider that if you can find a occupation and career, social situation that fits your interests.
All right. Well, wow, Gary, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for all of your incredible insights. We really appreciate you being a guest here on the Innovate Guam podcast. Um, to my audience, I hope you all were inspired and you learned something new today. And remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with future episodes. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. See you next time. And remember, whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you.